You know that look, right? You ask your dog to do something and they just stare right back at you. Have you ever looked at them in that moment and thought, you are literally just doing this to spite me? Well, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are going completely flip the script. We're going to shift our mindset away from blaming our dogs and start actually understanding their perspective, using some pretty fascinating behavioral science.
It's an incredibly common frustration, a dog that just selectively listens. They come running when you call them in the living room, but totally ignore you the second you step foot in the park. It is so easy to just label that as stubbornness. But we really have to ask, is it? Because the truth is, willful disobedience is actually incredibly rare in dogs. Usually, it's something else entirely. All right, let's jump into section 1, the stubborn dog myth and how we actually decode this behavior. Before we go slapping that stubborn label on a dog, we've got to look at the actual behavioral realities here. According to professional dog trainer Robin McFarlane, there are 3 main reasons your dog is ignoring you. Number 1, they honestly just don't understand what you want. Number 2, they aren't sufficiently motivated by whatever you're offering. Or number 3, there's an actual physical barrier compromising their ability to respond. Think about it. Dogs rarely sit there stroking their chin, weighing the philosophical pros and cons of disobeying you. They're just responding to their environment, their motivation, and their physical state in that exact split second. Which brings us to section 2, context and poisoned cues. Or really just understanding what a cue actually is. So this disconnect between humans and dogs is absolutely fascinating. We tend to think in terms of a command, meaning it's strictly verbal, a little militant, and totally non-negotiable. But for a dog, it's not a command, it's a cue. World-renowned trainer Susan Garrett explains that dogs process a highly complex picture. She calls it an antecedent arrangement, which, let's be real, is just a fancy science way of saying it's not just the word coming out of your mouth. It's where you're standing, what your hands are doing, the tone of your voice, the time of day, and even what the room smells like. And here is the absolutely crucial point. Dogs do not generalize well at all. They learn in these pictures that are tied to very specific contexts. If you teach your dog to sit in a quiet kitchen while you're holding a piece of cheese, they've learned that specific picture. If you suddenly ask them to sit at the front door when the doorbell's ringing and grandma's walking in, to your dog that is a completely different universe. It's not stubbornness, you guys. It's just a lack of contextual translation. And honestly, if we aren't careful, we can accidentally create what behaviorists call learned irrelevance. As outlined by Pets for Homes, this happens when a dog stops responding because they've learned your cue has absolutely no meaningful consequence. If you're just standing there repeating sit, 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 sit over and over without any reward or follow-through, your dog simply tunes the word out. It becomes elevator music. Susan Garrett warns this creates a poisoned cue, which basically prompts confusion instead of action. And once a cue is poisoned, you kind of have to pick a brand new word and start the whole shebang over from scratch. Okay, moving to section 3, stress and physical issues. These are the hidden biological barriers. Sometimes the roadblock isn't psychological at all. It's purely physical. Robin McFarlane shares 2 unbelievable anecdotes that hit the nail right on the head here. She had a client with this highly compliant German Shepherd that suddenly just refused to hold a sit and would immediately lay down instead. Turns out it wasn't stubbornness, it was Lyme disease. The sitting position was literally physically painful for the dog. Another young German Shepherd couldn't walk without spinning in circles. Neurological meds did absolutely nothing until a chiropractor found 2 misaligned vertebrae near the pelvis that were causing nerve impingement. The dog physically could not obey without spinning to relieve the pain. Just wild, right? And the hard data totally backs up this idea of invisible stress. Take a look at this study published in the Turkish Journal of Veterinarian and Animal Sciences. Notice the massive spike in cortisol, which is a primary stress hormone for hospitalized dogs on day 1, compared to the outpatient and control dogs. Stress physically alters a dog's internal biological state. And notice how it takes multiple days for those levels to gradually drop back down to baseline. If a dog is stressed out, whether that's from a vet visit or just an overwhelmingly chaotic dog park, they literally cannot process your cues. Their brain is offline. So how do we fix it? Let's get into section 4, the Pramack principle, and how we can use the environment to our advantage. The Pramack principle, which technically speaking is the relativity theory of reinforcement, is a total game changer. Simpatico dog training explains it perfectly. It's using a high probability behavior, meaning what the dog naturally wants to do, to reinforce a low probability behavior, which is what you want them to do. Instead of constantly fighting against the environment, we're actually going to use it to our advantage.
Think of it like this time-tested grandmotherly wisdom. You have to eat your broccoli if you want dessert. That is Premack in a nutshell. We are asking the dog for just a brief moment of focus or obedience, that's the broccoli, to earn the right to go sniff that really interesting fire hydrant, which is the dessert.
So here's what Premack looks like in action. Teaching a dog to drop it, when they finally let go of the tug toy, the reward isn't a piece of kibble. The reward is the game immediately starting up again. Simpatico calls outdoor walking the toy store hack. Giving you a moment of eye contact actually earns the dog more time to explore and sniff, even with fence running. If you maintain a safe distance, checking in with you earns them the right to look back at whatever's distracting them. You are giving them controlled access to what they want in order to reinforce the exact behavior you're asking for. It's brilliant.
Let's pull it all together in Section 5, the training ladder and rebuilding trust.
Spirit dog training points out a huge mistake literally all of us make. Trying to fix a problem in the exact environment where the dog is already actively failing. Look, if your dog ignores their recall command at a crazy busy dog park, do not try to fix the recall at the dog park. You have to step back and ask yourself this core diagnostic question. Where was the last point where my dog actually succeeded? You've got to go back to that specific point and rebuild from there.
And this requires a very deliberate, step-by-step progression. I love this framework from Ascend K9. Step 1, you start with engagement in a totally calm space, like your quiet kitchen. Step 2, you proof those cues in a low distraction area, maybe your driveway. Step 3 is gradual exposure on a quiet walking path. And only then, Step 4, do you move to high traffic areas like busy parks. You have to bridge that gap incrementally. As they say, you wouldn't jump from kindergarten straight to university physics exam, right? Give them a chance to learn the steps.
And as you slowly climb that ladder together, keep this really powerful quote from Susan Garrett in mind. The way we train, we don't eliminate reinforcement, we evolve what's reinforcing. Because the ultimate goal here isn't to just bribe your dog with hot dogs for the rest of their life. It's about building a true partnership where the value eventually transfers from a piece of food in your hand into the pure, genuine joy of working together as a team. So, I'll leave you with this. The next time your dog completely ignores you, how are you going to react? Are you going to just see stubbornness, or will you see a request for clarity? I challenge you to take just one step back in your training. Try looking at the picture from your dog's perspective and use these tools to rebuild a stronger, much more understanding bond. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, happy training!